Rahu and Ketu in the first and seventh house is an interesting concept, and one that a lot of people worry about. And Rahu and Ketu, even though they're malefics, they're just like any other planet, meaning that we can't just think that Rahu's in the seventh house or Ketu's in the seventh house, and therefore there's going to be lots of trouble. It's possible, but in order for that trouble to occur, there has to be negative or malefic influences influencing Rahu and Ketu. Otherwise, Rahu and Ketu, if they have benefic or helpful influences on them, they can do very well in the world. And just like the other planets, a benefic planet that's in bad dignity or a benefic planet that is in a bad Lajatatiya Vashta, it can give unpleasant results. So a benefic planet can give unpleasant results in the seventh house as well. Or a malefic planet in good dignity and in a good Lajatatiya Vashta, even though it's a malefic planet, it can still give good results. So whether something's going to give good or bad results is a little more dependent on a number of other factors, not just the planet in and of itself. Now, Rahu and Ketu, these are the north and the south nodes of the moon. Whenever we have Rahu in the first house, it can indicate a person who's strongly searching for their individuality or trying to manifest their true spirit, their true nature within this world. And it's more personality-based, so we're not talking necessarily spiritually speaking here. But Rahu is the outcast. Rahu is the one that leads the different life, that walks to the step of a different drummer. And wherever Rahu is placed, it shows that where in this lifetime is a person aiming to develop themselves. First house, that's personality, that's their ability to project themselves into the world. Since Rahu shows where in past lives we've not made any progress or not put much attention, it means we're not that good at it. And this is potentially one of the reasons why Rahu is considered to be such a negative or difficult planet. It's not a skill that we innately have. We have to develop it, which takes work. And most people don't necessarily always want to do the work that it takes to make something good happen. So Rahu can give success, again, if he's in good dignity, or if his lord is in good dignity, or he's influenced by planets that are in good dignity. All of that works out well. Now Rahu in the first also would make a person strongly attracted to people, things, ideals that they see as having a missing part of themselves. And they try to attach to and fully absorb whatever that is that they see outside of themselves because they don't feel it within. And this can create identity problems. It can create a little bit of obsessions around what they're interested in, or it can make a bit of a fanatical personality. And this oftentimes can create a crisis or some type of compulsive behavior within the person because they're always searching outside of themselves for that thing they think they're missing inside. Now, when people are practicing meditation, when they're getting more detachment, when they're a little bit wiser, eventually someone with Rahu in the first starts to realize that they really need to fulfill themselves, that it needs to come from them being who they are, no matter what anyone else says, no matter what the world out there is telling them. And this is what makes Rahu a bit of an outcast, because they will need to step out from the culture or the family or the ideals that they were raised in, and this can create a sense of loneliness. It can create a sense of not feeling like one fits in. But overall, again, Rahu's trying to make the person strong within themselves so they don't have to be dependent on others or other ideas to feel like they are fulfilled and that they fit in. This is why Rahu creates a bit of a compulsive or addictive personality. They're always chasing after something else, always longing after something else. But again, with detachment, with meditation, they start to see where true fulfillment comes from, and this Rahu can work in a little bit better way. When we have Ketu in the seventh house, and we have to remember that the nodes are always directly opposite each other. So if we have Ketu in the seventh, Rahu is going to be in the first. If we have Ketu in the first, Rahu is going to be in the seventh. And since we're talking about Rahu in the first, now we have to speak to Ketu in the seventh. The seventh house deals with relationships, public relations, being interactive with the world and a community, spouse. And Ketu is that planet that shows where in past lives have we strongly put our ego identification. And someone with Ketu in the seventh, it will show a person who in past lifetimes, they have strongly identified either with their spouse, or being able to really relate to the public and understand the public, or they found security through their relationships out there in the world. And they'll be really good at it. Ketu shows where we have our innate skills and our innate talents. Because again, we've built them up over many lifetimes. But Ketu is a spiritualizing energy. And this is, again, where Ketu gets a lot of its negativity, Because in our current world, most people, they want to have outward success. They want to be fulfilled externally. And Ketu is considered the planet of liberation. It's one of the most liberating planets, spiritually speaking, within the chart. So when Ketu gets activated, oftentimes those things that we're trying to find security through won't bring it to us. We'll be frustrated. It'll never be enough. I like to say that Ketu is like a person's black hole. If it's in the 7th house, the person will usually always be seeking fulfillment through their partner or through someone else or through relating to the world, being seen in the world, being important in the world. And Ketu's saying, well, in this lifetime, you're not going to get that. Well, let me back up. Not necessarily you won't get it. It's just that you won't be able to find fulfillment through it. Ketu can actually get a person married, and Ketu can actually make a person get in relationships very easily because they have those skills from past lifetimes. The trick is that Ketu is not going to let that person find fulfillment in that area. And this is problematic because it's compulsive, it almost feels instinctual, and this is one of the hardest things for someone to get their mind around when it comes to an astrology session. And even people who are very wise and very detached, you talk to them and they will always come back around to that area of life that Ketu's influencing and say, well, why can't I just get this to work out? And you could have told them 20 million times why, and they'll still be fixated on it. So Ketu in the 7th, it's like a black hole in regards to relationships. One of the things I found to work well with Ketu in the 7th, or really Ketu in any position, depending on what area of life Ketu is in, depending on which house it's in, is that area of life that Ketu is influencing, it helps if the person looks at that area of life as though they're serving their concept of the divine, or their concept of God, or pure consciousness. Meaning that when it comes to relationships, they shouldn't expect to get fulfilled. They should just simply be grateful to be in a relationship. They should see the person that they're in relationship to as an aspect of God, and that they are serving God, they are serving the divine. And when you serve the divine, you don't do it to get rewards. You do it because it's just the thing to do, because you love the divine, because you're committed to the divine. So the tricky part with Ketu is learning to be committed, focused on that area of life without getting sucked into it in the mind and trying to get fulfilled there, and treating it as though that area, anything you do in that area of life is like service to God or service to the divine. And for those of you who have Ketu in the 7th, hopefully you understand what I'm saying and you relate a little bit to this, but you might not because it's such a sensitive area for you. So let's take a look at Ketu in another spot. Let's pretend Ketu is in the 4th house, which can deal with mother. That can show a person who, no matter what, they're going to try to please their mother, they're going to try to get validation from their mother, but their mother's never going to give it. No matter how good of a job the person does, the mother will always have something to say about how this person either failed, or there's an expectation that the person can't live up to that the mother has. This is what makes it the black hole. The person keeps wanting to give attention to the mother. If it's the 5th house, it's children. If we have Ketu in the 5th, that can show where we want to put a lot of attention to children, and we want to really connect with our children or get fulfillment and identification from our children. But again, Ketu's saying no. You're aiming to move through that in this lifetime. And so no matter what you try to do for your children, no matter how good you are, the children will always expect more, or there will be some sort of strain within the relationship, create this separation. Now again, we have to remember that Ketu works like its lord, and Ketu works like the planets that it's with. So if Ketu's lord is in a good dignity, exalted, Mula Trikona, friend sign, Ketu will work a lot better, and there'll be less stress, and you'll hopefully understand a little bit better what Ketu's trying to do. Same thing with Rahu. If Rahu's lord is in good dignity, if Rahu is influenced by good planets, he will give an easier time of dealing with Rahu. So it's not just Rahu, it's not just Ketu. You have to look at the other planets that are influencing these two.